Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the peaceful horizon, watching the massive station orbiting before him. The Council's homeworld glowed blue and green below, beautiful and ancient. He had been here many times before, always for peaceful talks. Today felt different. The silence from his crew told him they felt it too. "Captain, incoming transmission from Earth," his communications officer said. The young woman's voice trembled slightly. Hyunwoo touched the panel on his command chair. His sister's face appeared on the screen. Ji-won looked tired, her diplomatic uniform wrinkled from too many sleepless nights. She was on the council station now, attending what everyone hoped would be routine negotiations. "Hyunwoo, it's bad," Ji-won said without greeting. "The council issued their ultimatum an hour ago. They want complete surrender of all human military forces. They want oversight of every human colony. They want us to accept permanent status as a lesser species." Hyunwoo felt his blood run cold. What reason did they give? "They claim we violated 17 colonial treaties. They say we expanded too fast, took too many systems, grew too powerful." "It's all lies, brother. We have proof they falsified those treaties. We have evidence of sabotage on our colonies. We even have recordings of them planning assassinations of Earth's leadership." Ji-won leaned closer to her camera. "They're afraid of us. That's what this is really about. How long do we have? 30 days to comply. After that, they promise corrective military action. That's what they're calling it. War, Hyunwoo. They're threatening war if we don't surrender everything we built." Hyunwoo looked at his crew. Every face showed the same mixture of anger and fear. Humanity had worked so hard to reach the stars. 3 centuries of sacrifice, exploration, and hope. Now the species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years wanted to take it all away. "What's Earth's response?" he asked. Ji-won smiled, but there was no humor in it. "That's why I'm calling. I need you to prepare for evacuation. Get every human civilian off council space within 24 hours. I'm about to do something that can't be undone." Inside the council chambers, Ji-won walked alone toward the center platform. Above her, the 7 species of the Galactic Council sat in their elevated seats looking down at her like gods judging a mortal. She had stood here many times before. Always respectful, always diplomatic. Not today. Ambassador Vrelic of the Manthar species spoke first. His translator made his chittering sounds into smooth words. "Human ambassador, have you brought your government's acceptance of our terms?" "No," Ji-won said simply. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives from all 7 species began talking at once. Vrelic raised one of his forearms for silence. "Then you understand the consequences. Your species will face the full might of the council military. Your colonies will be occupied. Your homeworld will submit. This is not a negotiation, human. This is fact." Ji-won reached into her jacket and pulled out a small data crystal. She held it up for all to see. "I have something to show the council. Evidence that you falsified the treaties you claim we violated. Proof that council agents sabotaged 3 of our colonies, killing thousands of innocent people. Recordings of council leadership planning to assassinate Earth's president." Vrelic's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "You have nothing. Even if such evidence existed, who would believe you? We are the council. We have maintained order in this galaxy for 10,000 years. You have been in space for barely 300. Your accusations are meaningless." "I know," Ji-won said. "That's why I'm not accusing you. I'm informing you." She activated the crystal. Around the chamber, holographic screens appeared, showing document after document, recording after recording, evidence of council crimes stretching back centuries, not just against humanity but against dozens of other species. The council representatives began shouting, demanding she stop, but Ji-won had locked the system. They couldn't shut it down. "You wanted to know humanity's response to your ultimatum," Ji-won said, her voice calm and clear. "Here it is. We reject your terms. We reject your authority. We reject your right to rule over us or anyone else." Vrelic stood, his massive form towering over the platform. "Then you have chosen extinction. The council will destroy humanity as an example to all who would dare defy us." Ji-won pulled a small neural transmitter from her pocket and placed it on her temple. "No, Ambassador. You chose war. Now face humanity's verdict." She activated the transmitter. Everything she knew, everything human intelligence had gathered over 50 years, flowed from her mind into the Council's communication network. Fleet positions, ship capabilities, defense installations, supply routes. The Council's military secrets became humanity's strategic advantage in seconds. Alarms blared throughout the station. Council security forces rushed toward the chamber, but Jiwon wasn't finished. She spoke directly to every camera, knowing her words were being transmitted across the entire galaxy. To every species watching this, know the truth. The Council rules through fear and lies. They crush anyone who shows promise. They destroyed civilizations before ours. They would have destroyed us too. Humanity stands today not to conquer, but to survive. Not to dominate, but to be free. We will fight, and we will win, because we have something the Council forgot. We have hope. Security grabbed her arms, dragging her from the platform. She didn't resist. Her job was done. On the peaceful horizon, Hyunwoo watched his sister's transmission with pride and terror. As soon as it ended, he activated the ship's communication system. All human vessels in Council space, this is Captain Hyunwoo of the Peaceful Horizon. Evacuate all civilians immediately. Rendezvous at the marked coordinates. Protocol Olympus is now active. The war has begun. Across the Council station, in embassies and trade posts, in mining operations and research facilities, thousands of humans heard the message. They moved quickly, efficiently, as if they had practiced this moment many times. Because they had. Within 6 hours, every human civilian was off the station. Within 12 hours, they were all in warp, heading for human space. Behind them, the Council mobilized its military. Thousands of warships began moving toward human territory. Hyunwoo stood on his bridge watching the stars. Somewhere out there, Admiral Taeyang was preparing the defense fleets. Somewhere, brave soldiers were taking positions in defense stations. Somewhere, Earth was holding its breath, waiting for the storm. Captain, all civilians accounted for. His officer reported. We're the last ship out. Good. Set course for home. Maximum warp. As the peaceful horizon jumped to faster than light speed, Hyunwoo thought about his sister's words. You chose war. Now face humanity's verdict. The Council had ruled the galaxy for millennia. They had crushed every species that defied them, but they had never faced humanity before. Admiral Taeyang stood in the command center on Mars, 3 levels below the planet's surface. Around him, holographic displays showed the entire solar system and beyond. Green dots represented human ships. Red dots showed Council forces. There were so many red dots. Admiral, all fleet commanders are standing by, his aide said. Taeyang nodded and activated the communication channel. 30 faces appeared on screens around him. Men and women commanding battle groups scattered across human space. Some he knew personally. Others he had only met through these same screens during planning sessions. All of them knew what was coming. Protocol Olympus is active, Taeyang said. The Council has mobilized their third armada. 5,000 warships heading toward our territory. They expect to crush us in weeks, maybe days. War Master Hector himself commands them. He's fought in 100 battles over his lifetime. He thinks we're weak. He thinks we're young. He thinks we'll break. Taeyang paused, looking at each face on the screens. Let's show him how wrong he is. All battle groups, move to your designated positions. Stay hidden until contact. Let them come to us. Remember your training. Trust your crews. And know that every human in the galaxy is counting on us. The screens went dark one by one as commanders returned to their ships. Taeyang watched the green dots on his display begin to move. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid fields behind moons in the shadows of gas giants. Ships the Council didn't know existed. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for 50 years. Ever since they realized the Council would never accept them as equals. 3 days later, the Council's third armada arrived at Proxima Centauri, the closest star system to Earth. War Master Hector stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator, a massive dreadnought that had destroyed entire planets. Around him, 5,000 ships dropped out of warp in perfect formation. Scan for human forces, Hector ordered. Detecting 200 ships, War Master, his sensor officer reported. They appear to be military vessels, but small. Frigate and destroyer class mostly. Hector's 4 eyes narrowed. Only 200? Where are their reinforcements? Unknown, War Master. But they're not retreating. They're forming a defensive line around the colony. Hector felt something he rarely experienced, confusion. Any reasonable commander would retreat when facing odds of 25 to 1. Either these humans were suicidal or they had a plan. He decided it didn't matter. All ships advance. Destroy them. On the bridge of the human destroyer Sejong, Commodore Minna watched the Council fleet approach. She was 32 years old, young for her rank, but she had been trained for this her entire military career. Around her, her crew worked in focused silence. "They're moving in standard formation," her tactical officer said. "Dreadnoughts at the center, cruisers forming a perimeter, support ships behind." "Predictable," Minna said. She opened the channel to her battle group. "All ships implement Dragon Pattern 7. Release the drones on my mark. Kinetic weapons standby. Remember, speed is life. We don't trade shots with them. We don't give them time to target us. We hit and move. Make them chase ghosts." The Council fleet entered weapons range. Hectorn gave the order to fire. Thousands of energy weapons blazed across space. But the human ships were already moving, scattering in patterns that seemed random, but were carefully calculated. The Council's targeting system struggled to lock on. "Now," Minna said quietly. 200 human ships released thousands of drones simultaneously. Small, fast, and expendable, they swarmed toward the Council fleet like angry insects. Council point defense systems began destroying them by the hundreds, but there were too many. They crashed into shields, overloading them with kinetic impact. As the Council scrambled to deal with the drones, Minna's ships attacked. They didn't use energy weapons that could be blocked by shields. Instead, they fired railguns, launching solid projectiles at a fraction of light speed. The rounds punched through weakened shields and tore into Council ships. "Target their support vessels," Minna ordered. "Cut off their ability to repair and resupply." Her ships moved like dancers, never staying still, never presenting an easy target. They used quantum communication, acting as one organism with 200 bodies. When Council ships tried to focus on one human vessel, 3 others would attack from different angles. Hectorn watched in growing rage as his fleet began taking casualties. How are they doing this? They're supposed to be primitives. "War Master, they're using tactics we've never encountered. Their coordination is perfect. They're too fast for our targeting systems. Then use area weapons. Saturate the space they're in." The Council ships began firing massive explosive rounds that didn't need to hit directly. They just needed to detonate near human ships. It was an effective counter tactic, and Minna watched as 2 of her destroyers took critical damage. "They're adapting," her tactical officer said. "So will we," Minna replied. "All ships switch to Hydra formation. Release second-wave drones, but this time program them for suicide runs on their command ships. Let's see how brave their commanders are when drones are heading for their bridges." The second wave launched. This time, instead of randomly swarming, the drones targeted specific ships. Council captains watched in horror as dozens of drones locked onto their vessels, ignoring point defense fire, accepting losses just to get through. Ships began breaking formation to avoid the drones. The perfect Council battle line dissolved into chaos. That's when Minna struck with everything she had. All ships, full assault. Hit them now while they're scattered. The human fleet attacked with brutal efficiency. They targeted ships that had broken from the fleet, isolated them, destroyed them one by one. Hectorn tried to reform his lines, but every time he gave an order, the humans shifted tactics, forcing him to respond instead of act. 6 hours into the battle, Hectorn realized he was going to lose. His 5,000 ships had been reduced to less than 4,000. The humans had lost only 40 vessels. The mathematics were clear. If he stayed, his entire fleet would be destroyed. "All ships retreat," he ordered, the words bitter in his mouth. "War Master, we cannot retreat. We are the Council. We do not run from lesser species." Hectorn grabbed his subordinate by the throat. "I said retreat. Save what we can." The Council fleet turned and warped away, leaving behind the wreckage of over 1,000 ships. Minna didn't pursue. She had won, and that was enough. "Send a message to Admiral Taeyang," she said. "Proxima Centauri is secure. The enemy is broken." Then she opened a channel that broadcast to every ship in the galaxy, both human and alien. Her face appeared on millions of screens. Today, humanity drew first blood. The Council came with 5,000 ships. They left with less than 3,000. They came believing we were weak. They learned otherwise. To every species watching, know this. The Council is not invincible. They can be beaten. They can bleed. And if they threaten you as they threatened us, remember that you don't have to stand alone. We didn't start this war, but we will finish it. Across the galaxy on 1,000 worlds, people watched the message. Some in fear, some in hope, and some in growing anger at the Council that had ruled them for so long. In his command center on Mars, Admiral Taeyang allowed himself a small smile. "One battle down," he said to his aide. "Many more to come." The war had begun, and humanity had just told the galaxy something important. They were not victims. They were fighters. The council chambers exploded with angry voices. Representatives from all 7 species shouted at each other, blame flying like weapons. War Master Hectorn stood in the center, his uniform still bearing scorch marks from the battle at Proxima Centauri. "Silence," High Chancellor Vorath demanded. The ancient being's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "War Master, explain how you lost over 1,000 ships to a force 1/20th your size." Hectorn's pride burned, but he spoke truthfully. "The humans fight unlike anyone we've faced. They coordinate perfectly. They move faster than our targeting can track. They use weapons we didn't expect. And they don't fight with honor. They fight to win. Then we will crush them with overwhelming force," Vorath declared. "Mobilize everything. All 6 armadas. Every species will contribute. We will show the galaxy what happens when someone defies the Council." 3 weeks later, the largest military fleet in galactic history gathered at the edge of Council space. 30,000 warships from 7 different species, representing 10,000 years of military tradition. They formed a wall of metal and energy that stretched across space like a storm. Admiral Taeyang watched them come on his holographic display. So many ships, so much firepower. On paper, humanity had no chance. "Admiral, the forward colonies are reporting the Council fleet has entered their sensor range," his communications officer said. "Good," Taeyang replied. "Activate Scorched Stars protocol. All forward colonies full evacuation. Begin the withdrawal." Across human space on 20 colony worlds, people moved with practiced efficiency. They had drilled for this. Within hours, every civilian was loaded onto transport ships. Everything that couldn't be moved was rigged with explosives or traps. Then the colonists jumped to warp, heading deeper into human territory. The Council fleet arrived at the first colony world expecting a battle. Instead, they found empty cities and abandoned stations. War Master Hectorn studied the readings from orbit. "Where are they?" he demanded. "All population centers are vacant, War Master. However, sensors are detecting power signatures throughout the planet. Send down landing forces. Secure the colony." The first troops had barely touched ground when the explosions began. Buildings detonated. Streets collapsed into underground tunnels filled with automated turrets. The sky filled with mines that had been waiting in orbit, dormant until ships came close enough. "It's a trap," someone shouted on the Council command channel. "Withdraw ground forces," Hectorn ordered. "We take the planet from orbit." But orbital bombardment took time, and while the Council fleet sat in place, destroying an empty world, human strike forces attacked their supply ships. Fast raiders jumped in, destroyed freighters carrying fuel and ammunition, then vanished before reinforcements arrived. Captain Dong Hyun commanded one such raider group, 12 fast corvettes that hit and ran like wolves picking off prey. His ships emerged from warp behind a Council supply convoy, fired every weapon they had, then jumped away before the escorts could respond. "That's the 4th convoy this week," his tactical officer said with satisfaction. "Good," Dong Hyun replied. "The Council has a huge fleet, but fleets need supplies. We can't beat them in open battle, so we bleed them slowly. Every ship we destroy is one less they can use against our colonies." The Council advance continued, but it was slow and costly. Every system they entered had been prepared. Automated weapons platforms fired from asteroids. Mines drifted in shipping lanes. False sensor readings led ships into gravitational anomalies, and always the human raiders struck their supply lines. High Chancellor Vorath watched casualty reports with growing concern. They had lost 800 ships, and they hadn't even reached the core human worlds yet. "How long until we reach their populated systems?" "At current pace, 6 more weeks, an aide reported. "Unacceptable. We are the Council. We should have crushed them in days." "The humans refuse to fight battles we can win," War Master Hectorn explained. "They only fight when conditions favor them." "They are cowards." "No," a new voice said. The Council turned to see Representative Kira of the Vren species, one of the younger Council members. "They're not cowards. They're smart. We have more ships, so they avoid ship battles. We have more firepower, so they use traps and ambushes. They fight the war they can win, not the war we want them to fight." "Are you defending them?" Vorath demanded. "I'm stating facts," Kira replied. "And I'm starting to question why we're in this war. I've reviewed the evidence Ambassador G1 presented. The treaty violations she mentioned, I can't find records of those treaties. The colonies she said we sabotaged, I found communications ordering those sabotages. We started this war, not them. Careful, Representative, Vorath warned. Questioning the council is dangerous. But Kira wasn't the only one questioning. On Vren worlds, on Kishtar colonies, younger generations watched the war and asked why. They saw the evidence humanity broadcast. They compared it to their own records and found discrepancies. The council's story didn't match reality. The council fleet finally reached the Tau Ceti system, the last major barrier before Earth itself. Commander Bora waited in orbit with the defense fleet, 300 ships against 30,000. She knew she couldn't win this battle. That wasn't the plan. All ships take positions around the sun, she ordered. Engineering teams confirmed the solar collectors are operational. For 50 years, humanity had been building structures around Tau Ceti's sun, disguised as research stations. They weren't research stations. They were weapons. The council fleet entered the system confidently. This time the humans couldn't run. This time, they would fight and die. Warmaster, the human fleet is positioned oddly, a sensor officer reported. They're clustered near the sun. Hectorn studied the formation. They're using the sun's gravity well to enhance their weapons. Standard defensive tactic, close to engagement range and destroy them. The council fleet advanced. They crossed the inner system boundary. That's when Bora activated the collectors. Massive structures around the sun began focusing its energy, creating artificial solar flares. Directed electromagnetic pulses burst from the sun itself. Waves of energy that scrambled electronics and disabled shields. Thousands of council ships went dark simultaneously, their systems overloaded. Now, Bora shouted, hit them while they're blind. The human fleet attacked, targeting disabled ships with kinetic weapons that didn't need electronics to work. They were simple, brutal, and devastatingly effective. Ship after ship exploded as railgun rounds tore through hulls that no longer had shields. The council fleet that could still move tried to retreat, but the electromagnetic pulses had disrupted their warp drives. They were trapped in the system while human ships methodically destroyed them. Hectorn watched his fleet die around him. Over 10,000 ships disabled or destroyed in minutes. The rest scattered, fleeing in different directions just to escape. On her bridge, Bora broadcast her victory. Tau Ceti is secure. The path to Earth remains closed. The council brought 30,000 ships. They're leaving with less than 20,000. How many more defeats before they learn? How many more ships before they stop? We didn't want this war, but we will not surrender. We will not kneel. And we will not lose. In the council chambers, silence filled the space. They had thrown everything at humanity and failed. For the first time in 10,000 years, the council faced the possibility of defeat. What do we do now? Someone asked quietly. No one had an answer. Admiral Taeyang stood before the holographic map of the galaxy, watching green dots push forward into red territory. Human fleets were advancing now, moving toward the council's core systems. But this wasn't a war of conquest. It was something different. Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from 17 different species, his communications officer reported. They're asking for our help. They say they want to rebel against the council but need support. Taeyang nodded slowly. This is what we've been waiting for. Send response to all of them. Humanity will support any species seeking freedom from council tyranny, but we won't rule over them. We fight to liberate, not to conquer. Some of the other admirals are concerned, his aide said quietly. They think we should establish human dominance while we can. Make sure we're the new power in the galaxy. Then they don't understand what we're fighting for, Taeyang replied. If we replace the council with human rule, we become exactly what we're fighting against. Send the order. All fleet commanders are to support rebellions, but not to occupy territories. In a secure intelligence facility on Earth, Officer Yuna sat surrounded by screens displaying captured council data. She had been decrypting files for weeks, working through layers of security, finding secrets the council had hidden for millennia. What she found made her blood run cold. Commander, you need to see this, she said to her superior. The files showed everything. Planets destroyed because their inhabitants showed too much technological promise. Species enslaved and their history erased. Civilizations eliminated before they could reach space, and carefully maintained lies about all of it. Rewriting history to make the council look like benevolent guardians. How many species? Her commander asked quietly. At least 40 that we can confirm, Yuna replied. Probably more. The Council has been doing this for thousands of years. Any time a species got close to their level of technology, they destroyed them. They called it maintaining stability. They called it preventing war. But really, they were just protecting their power. Can you verify all of this? I already have. The evidence is solid. Dates, locations, even some recordings. The Council kept detailed records of their crimes. I think they wanted to remember, wanted to prove to themselves they were doing necessary things. Her commander looked at the data for a long moment. Send this to Admiral Taeyang and prepare a public broadcast. Every species in the galaxy needs to see this. The broadcast went out simultaneously on every frequency, translated into hundreds of languages. Yuna's findings showed the truth about the Council. Not just their crimes against humanity, but against everyone. The galaxy watched and learned that their ancient rulers were not protectors, but predators. On Council worlds, rebellions erupted. On Vren Prime, Representative Kira led a movement to overthrow their planetary government. On Kishtar 7, military forces refused orders to fight humans. Across the galaxy, the Council's power crumbled as species realized they had been lied to for generations. But the Council's remaining leadership retreated to their fortress world, Coronis Prime. War Master Hectorn commanded the defense, 3,000 ships and planetary shields that had never been broken in 10,000 years. They can broadcast whatever lies they want, Hectorn declared to his remaining forces. This fortress has stood against every threat. It will stand against the humans too. We hold here, we survive, and eventually we rebuild. High Chancellor Vorath was less confident. We've lost most of our fleet. Half our member species have rebelled. Our power is broken. Then we make them pay to take this world, Hectorn said. Make it so costly they'll negotiate. We can still salvage something from this. Captain Hyunwoo, now commanding a battle fleet, led the human forces toward Coronis Prime. Around him, ships from 20 different species joined the attack. Former Council subjects who wanted revenge, who wanted justice, who wanted to see their oppressors fall. All ships, this is Fleet Commander Hyunwoo. We're not here to destroy Coronis Prime, we're here to capture it. Those shields need to come down without killing everyone inside. The Council leadership will stand trial, but we won't become executioners. Commander, their shields are some of the strongest in the galaxy, his tactical officer said. We could bombard them for months and not break through. Then it's good we brought the shield breakers, Hyunwoo replied with a slight smile. Human engineering ships moved into position around the planet, large vessels that looked more like research stations than warships. They began broadcasting a specific frequency, a harmonic resonance carefully calculated over months of study of captured Council shield technology. On Coronis Prime, Hectorn watched his shield displays with growing alarm. What are they doing? The shields are fluctuating. They're using some kind of resonance weapon, his engineer reported. It's matching the frequency of our shields, creating feedback loops. If they maintain it, the shields will collapse. Then stop them. Destroy those ships. But the human fleet protected the engineering vessels, creating a defensive screen no attack could penetrate. For 3 days, the resonance continued, building and building until the shields began to fail. War Master, shield integrity at 40% and dropping. Hectorn watched his supposedly impregnable fortress become a trap. How did they learn to do this? Humans are good at solving problems, someone said quietly. The shields collapsed completely on the 4th day. But instead of attacking, Hyunwoo broadcast a message to the planet. War Master Hectorn, High Chancellor Vorath, and all Council leadership. This is Fleet Commander Hyunwoo of Earth. Your shields are down. Your fleet is destroyed. Your empire has fallen. You have 2 choices. Surrender and stand trial for your crimes, or we will take you by force. You have 1 hour to decide. Inside the Council fortress, the remaining leaders argued. Some wanted to fight to the death. Others saw no point in dying for a lost cause. We could destroy the planet, Vorath suggested. If we can't have it, no one should. And prove everything they say about us is true? Kira asked. She had arrived during the siege representing the species who had rebelled. I was part of the Council once. I believed we were doing good. But I've seen the evidence. I've read the files. Everything they say about us is true. We're not the heroes of this story. We never were. Then what do you suggest? Vorath asked bitterly. We surrender. We face justice. And maybe, if we're lucky, we get a chance to make amends for what we've done. 58 minutes after Hyunwoo's ultimatum, The council's response came. We surrender. We will stand trial. Human forces landed on Coronis Prime peacefully. They found the council leadership in their chambers waiting. War Master Hectorn stood with dignity, his weapons laid aside. High Chancellor Vorath looked old and tired, the weight of 10,000 years finally showing. I want to know one thing, Hectorn said as human soldiers took him into custody. How did you win? We had more ships, more experience, more of everything. Hyunwoo looked at the old warrior. You had everything except what mattered most. You fought to maintain power. We fought for survival and freedom. You fought for an empire. We fought for a future. That's why you lost. As the council leaders were escorted to transport ships, Hyunwoo looked at the fortress that had seemed so invincible. It had fallen not because humanity was stronger, but because they were smarter, more adaptable, and unwilling to give up. Commander, what happens now? His aide asked. Now comes the hard part, Hyunwoo replied. Winning the war was difficult. Building a lasting peace will be even harder. But we'll figure it out. We always do. The trial took place not on Earth, not in council chambers, but in a neutral space station built specifically for this purpose. It orbited a star that had no name in any language, chosen because it belonged to no one and therefore could belong to everyone. Ambassador Ji-won walked through the station, checking preparations. 6 months had passed since the war ended. 6 months of rebuilding, negotiating, and preparing for this moment. She was no longer just Earth's ambassador. 23 species had asked her to serve as chief prosecutor for the tribunal. It was a responsibility she took seriously. Ambassador, the judges are taking their positions, an aide informed her. Ji-won entered the tribunal chamber. It was circular, with no elevated platforms, no positions of superiority. 23 judges sat in a ring, each representing a species that had suffered under council rule. In the center stood the accused, 7 individuals who had led the council during its final years. War Master Hectorn stood tall despite his chains. High Chancellor Vorath looked diminished, older than his centuries. The others showed various levels of defiance and resignation. This tribunal is now in session, the chief judge announced. She was Kira of the Vren, former council member turned rebel leader. The accused stand charged with crimes against civilization, genocide of 40 species, enslavement of hundreds of millions, falsification of historical records, suppression of technological development across the galaxy, and conspiracy to maintain power through violence and deception. Ji-won stepped forward. The prosecution will demonstrate that these crimes were not the actions of a few corrupt individuals, but the systematic policy of the council itself, maintained over thousands of years. We will show that the accused knew exactly what they were doing, understood the harm they caused, and continued anyway, because they valued power more than justice. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Ji-won presented evidence carefully, methodically. She showed destroyed worlds where civilizations had been eliminated. She played recordings of council leaders ordering assassinations. She brought forward survivors from enslaved species who testified about generations of oppression. The defense argued that the council maintained order in a chaotic galaxy, that without their rule, species would have destroyed each other in endless wars, that every difficult decision was made for the greater good. On the 8th day, Ji-won called her most important witness, a Vren historian named Taemin, who had spent his life studying the galaxy's true history, the one the council tried to erase. Tell the tribunal what you discovered, Ji-won said. Taemin spoke quietly but clearly. The council claims they prevented wars and maintained peace. But my research shows the opposite. Before the council took power, the galaxy had fewer wars, not more. Species traded peacefully, shared technology, cooperated on major projects. The council didn't create peace. They created fear, called it stability, and crushed anyone who challenged them. How can you prove this? The defense attorney demanded. Because some records survived, Taemin replied. Hidden archives, oral histories, even some council documents they forgot to destroy. The galaxy was never as violent as they claimed. They needed us to believe in constant danger so we would accept their control. War Master Hectorn stood suddenly. You speak of things you don't understand. You weren't there when the ancient wars nearly destroyed everything. The council was formed to prevent that from happening again. That may have been true once, Ji-won said, facing him directly. Perhaps the council started with good intentions, but good intentions don't excuse 10,000 years of crimes. You became exactly what you claimed to prevent. You became the destroyers, the oppressors, the threat to civilization itself. We maintained order, Hectorn shouted. You maintained power, Jiwan replied calmly. There's a difference. Order built on fear and violence isn't order. It's tyranny. The defense rested after 2 weeks. Then came closing arguments. The defense pleaded for understanding, claiming the council made hard choices in difficult times. G1's closing argument was simple and devastating. The defense asks us to understand the context, to see the difficult position the council was in, but context doesn't change facts. They destroyed 40 species. They enslaved billions. They lied about history. They attacked humanity when we refused to submit. These are not the actions of leaders trying to maintain peace. These are the actions of tyrants protecting power. She paused, looking at each judge. But this trial isn't about revenge. It's about justice. It's about establishing that no one, no matter how powerful, is above accountability. The galaxy is watching. Every species wants to know if might makes right, or if there are principles we all agree to follow. Your verdict will answer that question. The judges deliberated for 5 days. When they returned, the chamber was silent. Chief Judge Kira spoke. We find the accused guilty of all charges. The evidence is overwhelming. The crimes are undeniable. They destroyed civilizations, oppressed billions, and maintained power through violence and deception. Vorath closed his eyes. Hectorn's face remained expressionless. However, Kira continued, this tribunal recognizes that execution or imprisonment solves nothing. The accused will be sentenced to service. They will spend the remainder of their lives helping rebuild the civilizations they destroyed. They will work alongside the species they oppressed. They will see firsthand the harm they caused. This is our verdict. That's not justice, Hectorn protested. That's humiliation. No, G1 said quietly. That's mercy. We could have done to you what you did to others. We chose to be better than you. That's the difference between us. The tribunal adjourned. The former council leaders were taken to begin their sentences. Jiwan walked out of the chamber to find Admiral Tae Yang waiting. How does it feel? He asked. Like the easy part is over, she replied. Now we have to build something better. They walked together toward the station's observation deck. Through the windows, they could see ships from dozens of species, all gathered for the historic announcement. In what had been the council chambers, now transformed into the assembly hall of the Galactic Concordance, representatives from every free species gathered. No elevated seats, no symbols of superiority, just a circle of equals. Captain Hunwoo, representing Earth, stood to speak. The council ruled through force for 10,000 years. Today we begin something different. The Galactic Concordance will be founded on principles, not power. Every species gets a vote. Every world has a voice. We solve disputes through negotiation, not war. And if any of us forgets these principles, the others will hold them accountable. But who leads this concordance? Someone asked. Which species has authority? None of us, Hyunwoo replied. And all of us. Leadership rotates. Decisions require consensus. No single species controls the others. That's how we prevent another council from forming. The motion passed with unanimous support. The Galactic Concordance was born not from conquest but from cooperation. 5 years later, Admiral Tae Yang stood on Earth's orbital defense station. He was older now, his hair showing gray. The war felt like a lifetime ago, though it had only been a few years. Ensign Subin, fresh from the academy, approached him nervously. Admiral, permission to ask a question? Granted. Do you ever regret the war? All the people who died, the destruction, everything we lost. Tae Yang looked at Earth below, blue and beautiful. Every single day. War isn't glorious. It's tragic. But sometimes, not fighting is worse than fighting. The council gave us a choice. Surrender everything that made us human or stand and fight. We chose to stand, but we started it, Subin said. Ambassador Jiwan's transmission, that was the first shot. No, Tae Yang replied. The first shot was fired when the council decided humanity didn't deserve freedom. We just decided not to accept their verdict. We delivered our own instead. He turned to face the young officer. Remember something, Ensign. Peace isn't the absence of war. Peace is the presence of justice. The council offered us peace, but it was the peace of slaves. We chose war to earn real peace, the kind where every species stands equal. That's worth fighting for. On the wall behind them hung a memorial displaying a single phrase, Jiwan's final transmission to the council. Taeyang read it aloud as he did every year on the anniversary. You chose war. Now face humanity's verdict. And what was humanity's verdict? Subin asked. Taeyang smiled. That freedom matters more than safety. That justice matters more than order. That no one, no matter how powerful, has the right to rule over others without consent. That's what we fought for. That's what we won. He looked back at Earth, at the ships from dozens of species moving peacefully through space, at a galaxy that was still healing but finally free. We didn't just win a war, Ensign. We changed what the galaxy believes is possible. We proved that you don't need to be the strongest to win. You just need to be unwilling to surrender what matters most. The Council forgot that. They learned it the hard way. Subin stood at attention. I understand, Admiral. Good, because that lesson isn't just about the past. It's about the future. As long as humanity exists, we'll face challenges. Some we can overcome with words, others will require action. But we never compromise on freedom, on dignity, on the right of every species to chart their own destiny. That's not just humanity's verdict, that's humanity's promise.